this Skywatcher Start Adventurer Tips video for beginners. In this video I'm going to go through 4 basic tips which will hopefully help you take better pictures of the night sky using your astrophotography equipment on the Star Adventurer. So let's quickly go through the equipment. I've got a tripod, Star Adventurer itself, a Canon 5D Mark III body and a Sigma 70-200mm lens. So let's crack on with tip number 1. Tip number 1 is the tripod. You'll notice that this isn't a standard DSLR tripod which many people will use when starting out with the Star Adventurer, and that's exactly what I did. I used a Manfrotto X Pro 99 and found it to be absolutely adequate, but what I did discover is as I increased the payload up here, especially with this heavy Sigma lens, the Canon 5D body is quite heavy as well. I started to notice that with the same perfect polar alignment I was achieving, I was getting some trailing, and when I investigated further I'd noticed that the tripod was suffering from a little bit of flexure over the night time. So I invested in this Skywatcher stainless steel 3/8 tripod. It's designed for the Star Adventurer amongst other small Skywatcher wedges. It fits on there with no adjustments or no additional adapters required, and this steel rod here just goes straight up into the bottom of the base. It's absolutely rock solid and provides a really good firm base for your Star Adventurer and potentially up to 5 kilogram payloads, which is what the maximum Star Adventurer will take. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is balance. So balancing is the art of making sure that this axis on your Star Adventurer is balanced, and the reason we need to do that is the less strain we're putting on the motors and the gears in here, the better your tracking will be during your exposure times. So there's an easy way to balance the axis, which is first of all to loosen the clutch, and then what I'm going to do is spin this round so it's horizontal to the ground, and then I'm just going to let go and see which way it moves. So you can clearly see it moves on the camera side. So this is technically called camera side heavy. So I'm going to bring that back up, tighten the clutch down a little bit, not much. So how do you adjust that? Well, you would have your counterweight and you would move this up and down the shaft, but obviously I want this further out, but I can't do that. So what we can do is move this dovetail bracket down in the wedge a little bit. So if we just move it down and tighten it back up, and then I'm going to loosen the clutch again and repeat the process. So I'm going to move it horizontal. Oh, right, okay, there we're not moving now. It's now balancing really well, and a good test is to put the position into multiple positions and see if you get any movement. So that's it balanced. Now if you had a light payload on here and it was the counterweight side that was heavy, you would undo this and move this up and down the bar until you find the same balance. I can't stress how much balancing will improve the tracking abilities of this, because the motors in here are not obviously there. It's quite a cheap mount to buy, so the less strain you're putting on these the better, and balancing will give you very, very big improvement, especially when doing longer exposures. Okay, tip number 3 is lose the ball head. So as you can see here, I've got no ball head attached to my camera or my lens, and I see quite a few beginners and a few experienced people who will still use a ball head on this. Now the main disadvantage of doing that is you're creating quite a large drift off the centre of gravity up off this plate here, and even though you might think that the ball head is secure and snugly tightened down, it does add to problems when you're imaging. You're also creating a little bit of a sail in the night sky, so if you get any wind, it's obviously got a bigger surface to catch. So my tip is to try and mount your camera and your lens or your scope as close to this top bracket as possible. As you can see here, hopefully, if I just twist it sideways, the lens collar is attached directly onto this plate here. One of the biggest reasons why people use a ball head is so they can easily point the lens or the scope to a particular part of the night sky. And some beginners will often be confused with, well, how do I make this point that way when I can only do this? This is really straightforward. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this lens point over there. And the way you achieve this is loosen the RA. In fact, I'll do it this way so you can see the knob that I'm going to adjust. And then there's a little knob here which moves this plate round. So yes, it does take a little bit longer than a ball head, but the benefits of not having that ball head and using this way, in my opinion, is substantially better for your images. And once you've done it once or twice, it will become second nature. So just about there, I think you get the idea. So I can do a bit of the RA adjustment. So now my lens is basically pointing this way. So with this clutch and with moving this around, you can basically point that into any position that you would be able to when using a ball head. Okay, tip number 4, I'll leave that where it is polar alignment. Obviously you need to polar align the Star Adventurer to Polaris, and when I first got into astrophotography, I will admit I struggled with that, especially looking through this polar scope and putting a illuminated reticle in here. I did really struggle until I discovered the electronic way of doing that, which is to use something called a PoleMaster. All this is a small CMOS camera. It's manufactured by QHYCCD, and with this adapt here, which came with the PoleMaster, what I can do is attach that in here, take off the lens cap, and this is just a lens. So what you would do is roughly point the wedge and the Star Adventurer at Polaris. Then the PoleMaster comes with some Windows-based software, and what the Windows-based software basically gets you to do is to move the right ascension through various positions, 30 degrees at a time, and asks you to click on stars that are moving once you're doing that. And then at the end, it shows you where Polaris should be, and then you use your Alt-Az and your altitude adjustments to position Polaris into a illuminated reticle on screen. It's very accurate. Some people do use sharp cap, but obviously when you haven't got a guide scope, and don't believe you can use this with sharp cap at the moment. This provides a really accurate way of polar aligning, and obviously together with balancing and polar aligning, your exposures are going to be able to go that little bit longer in length. So that's the end of the video. Hope you enjoyed those 4 tips, and I hope they help you to improve your image of the night sky. So please like and subscribe the video if you enjoyed it, and I will catch you soon. Bye bye now.